Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state-certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases. Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. If this is your first time being here, thank you for coming. Welcome. And while you're in chat, be mindful and respectful of families, mods, and each other. Mrs. Steve, who normally, when I'm back in Georgia, is sitting beside me, and she keeps everybody in line and in order with questions. But we'll have a presentation, and during that presentation, if you have any questions, absolutely throw them in chat, and I'll try to get to them. We run a little bit different when I'm by myself. As far as I go through chat continuously, probably slows it down a little bit, but it's best I can do by myself. And but anyway, we'll get into it tonight. We're going to be talking about, of course, Richard Allen. And there was a report and there was an article of where about the transcripts of the phone call when he confessed to his wife. And in that article, it said that he confessed that he committed the offenses as charged, quote. And so I was looking at that and thinking back about Doug Carter when he was talking about the individual on the bridge, one that we refer to as Bridge Guy. What supporting evidence, what one witness do we have? We have witness number 4 who says he's on the first platform. But do we have a witness other than the image taken from, or the series of images captured from that video showing that short 1 to 2 step loop that is played? And be mindful that I got to thinking about it. And part of the thing was that when Doug Carter said, look at how he walks. And I got to thinking about that. Who else saw him walking that described that? And so I found a witness that saw him walking that day, and in details, and I broke it down. We'll get to that. That I had always given them credit as being a key witness, but they're absolutely, whereas I count Richard Allen as probably the number 1 witness in this case as far as incriminating himself. And then I had number 4 as number 2, they as putting him on the first platform. But I went and I reevaluated and looked at this and trying to give some weight to what was Doug Carter's understanding, and why would he try to let people see how he was walking as far as Bridge Guy and some that short loop. And I understand now a little bit more, and you will too when we get to that slide and we bring up that witness as far as the description of how he walked. And but that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And of course, with this case, if you have any information regarding this case, absolutely make sure that the prosecution has it, the defense, so that we can have justice for them for the fact that absolutely is necessary as this trial goes forward, and as the court system is the ship gets righted, and which it will, and we're going to proceed forward, and I hopefully will have a trial soon enough. And it won't never be soon enough as far as for what the families need and what they're going through. So always remember them. All right. But this is the article that was quoted. The investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard M. Allen admits that he committed the homicides of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. And of course, he's speaking to his wife, and she ends the phone call. But that, why would he say that? Of course, his defense plays it off as one way, but we have to look at it from another. That whatever supporting witnesses, that, well, did anyone see him with the Libby and Abby? Well, Libby did, and she did the one thing that was remarkable, that she absolutely videotaped him and put an individual that was dressed in a certain way, that walked a certain way, and not only was walking in a certain way when she saw him on the bridge, and I've done several videos discussing how he walks, and I believe there's a lot more within that video we don't see, but within that video, I think there was some editing occurred by law enforcement as far as a strategy, and that's in some of my older videos, but still that walk is very significant, and they were able to focus people upon it and to see if anyone recognized it. But this one statement here, that he says that he committed the offenses as charged. And with that in mind, I went back to the probable cause affidavit for his arrest and went through it and was paying a lot of attention to what Doug Carter said about Bridge Guy and what the witnesses said. And I picked out the three top witnesses against Richard Allen. And of course, we have to go with Richard Allen when he states between his statements that he was on the trails between 1:30 and 3:30, which is the key times. Now, you can go back and find his statements, but I took key points from that, because when he first entered and crossed Freedom Bridge, and as he was walking towards the Monon High Bridge, he saw the juvenile girls. The juvenile girls say that that's Mrs. Steve watching the Georgia game. If you hear some female screaming down the hall, that's her. But anyway, he saw the juvenile girls, and he went on to the Monon Bridge, continued on, and that he had parked near and at the side of an old building, and that he was wearing blue jeans, a blue black jacket, and had a head covering. All key information, all critical information that is substantiated by other witnesses of the juveniles, and also by the witness that saw him on the bridge. But like I said, we have to find what are the key points, and you have to remember these things and burn them into your mind, because there's going to be a moment in a few minutes that if you closed your eyes and you looked at this picture and remember everything that you see of this picture of Bridge Guy standing there, and watch that loop as he crosses, and you see that 40-something, was it 48 slides or so of that 1 second video, or second and a half video of him taking that step or two. And that's what this whole information is built upon. How much credit can we give that to Doug Carter, that Doug was really set and was trying to confirm in so many ways and within the public that if you knew this guy, you would recognize his walk, because this is something that he did here, but he also did it somewhere else. And so you see a guy here walking across the bridge, head down, hands in pockets, baggy pants, blue jacket. And you have to remember that. And it's going to be extremely critical as we move forward. But let me get into chat before we get out of here and see if there's anything going on, because like I said, it's a little bit harder for me to do. But thank you everybody for being here. And I see that Fig's in the chat. Hello, Fig. Good to see you. Let's see here. I'm trying to get this thing working. I've got some new people I hadn't seen before, and thank y'all for being here. We want to thank all our people that normally come. I'm sorry I can't recognize everybody, but we absolutely appreciate y'all's support, because without it, we wouldn't be able to do what we do on the cold case side of this also. Let's see here. All right. I guess we're going to see if I've got any questions for a few minutes, and then we'll be moving right along. I see some old friends I hadn't seen in a while. Good to see y'all back. And of course, I'm getting emails and text messages as I go through this. Goodness. Oh, me. All right. Just trying to keep up. And before I get too far behind, guys, I'll just have to bear with me here. All right. Try to keep it up on the fives here. Let me see. I'm about halfway. I missed that. All right. Okay. All right. Now let's go to our next slide. And of course, this is the one of where the lady goes past the camera at the harvest store. She sees the juvenile girls crossing the bridge, which they confirm. So she confirms she sees them right after they and Richard Allen, through their individual statements, say they saw each other, and that after she went on and parked there at the Myers lot, that she went out towards the bridge. And of course, she saw the male on the Monon Bridge, and that she also saw where there was a vehicle that was parked along the old building, which is the same as what Richard Allen says, that he parked next to an old building, and that this individual was wearing jeans, jacket, and that she, upon leaving after seeing him, met the victims. This is something that we've covered several times and on several occasions about this, of how important it is. And I'd always given this witness a high value, and I still give this witness a high value, because this witness here, in conjunction with the other one, will absolutely be a big nail in the coffin, for the fact that she confirms that within minutes of when the first three juveniles saw him, and that they walked past, and then she confirms that she sees an individual that would be within that same time frame, which is critical. And that critical time frame sets the parameters of the window of opportunity of when this offender could be on the bridge, and who could that offender be. And it narrows the picture down more and more, because this is one of the biggest questions every time I do a show about Delphi, and I've been looking at quite hard in the last few weeks, for the fact that from what's going on with the courts and what happened with the 136-page Frank's motion and everything, that I have a lot of people that just throwed out all the evidence and all the thinking of that why it's not Richard Allen. And they're not looking at that an individual has to be there to be able to commit this crime. And who do we know for a fact that was there that could commit this crime, that fits the description, that says he was there and would have had the opportunity to do this crime? And this, of course, is this individual here. And so, once again, on this next witness, when we look at this, I want you to think about it and close your eyes at any time and look at this picture, and you see a guy in blue jacket, baggy jeans, hands in pockets, head down, walking through that 1.5 second loop that Doug Carter emphasized that we had to pay attention to. And this witness here, I think, would be one of the most critical witnesses on this case, in addition to witness number 4 who saw him on the bridge. And it's going to be this juvenile, because she said that when you read through hers, and let me pull this up and get this. And I want to read this whole thing. That she took a photo of the Monon High Bridge at 12:43, and another one taken at 1:26, which is a critical time. This is a time when Richard Allen says later on that he was leaving. But we have where this witness says, I took a picture at 1:26, and then I met this individual here, which is absolutely critical. And that after she took the photo, they started walking back towards the Freedom Bridge. She advised that when they encountered the man who matched the description of the photograph taken from victim 2's video, and that would be Libby, that she described the man as she encountered on his trail as wearing a blue or black windbreaker jacket. She'd advised the jacket had a collar and he had his hood up from the clothing underneath his jacket. She advised he was wearing baggy jeans and was taller than her. She advised her head came up to approximately his shoulder. She said hi to the man, and he said nothing back, or one of those dudes now. And she stated he was walking with a purpose, like he knew where he was going. She stated he had his hands in his pockets and kept his head down. She advised she did not get a good look at his face, but believed him to be a white male. The girl advised after encountering the male, they could continue to walk across Freedom Bridge and the old railroad bridge over Old State Road 25, where the other witness saw the girls crossing. So we know that everything of this time frame is true. And so that not only does the witness that saw him on the bridge, she confirms the timeline also. Due to her harvest store passing, all of this is supporting evidence. It's a long loop, and it just, everything supports each other. And so you would have to have a mass conspiracy of these witnesses who were separate and unknowing to each other at the time of what was said, how it was said, and what the time frames were. And so that's all critical. But I want you, just with what this one witness says, that blue black jacket, collar hood, baggy jeans, hands in pocket, heads down. And when you look at that loop, what do you see? You see a guy in a blue or black jacket, could be collar, hood, baggy jeans, hands in pocket, heads down. And so from that description, that this is how this man walks. And that's what was key about what Doug Carter was trying to emphasize, that probably 10 to 15 minutes, because it's from Freedom Bridge down to the Monon High Bridge is not something that is a 1 or 2 minute walk. That's a 10 or 15 minute walk, depends on what your pace is from where they would have met him. And so he was already in this posture. He was already walking in this manner. He had his hands in his pockets, had his head down. He had those baggy jeans on. He had that blue black jacket, had a collar hood, which you can all see in this one picture. And so this is why this witness, that I've given her so much more value now than I had before. And this is why, because like I said, she saw the individual 10 to 15 minutes. And if you didn't have this picture and didn't know that it existed, how would she have known that description? And that's the what's so key about this and so interesting and important, for the fact that when you go to trial, you have to have key points. And we will look at this and see that these key points, that we have two witnesses that describes this guy that's on the bridge. And we have the victims who took images of him on the bridge, walking and looking exactly how Rich Allen says he was dressed, how the juvenile saw him up the trail saw him, and how that witness that parked at Myers Bridge confirmed that he had made it to the bridge. And then that when she returned to her car, she met the victims, which is huge. And when you see these three slides put together, that and you read them and give them full credit, just these key notes that you see, that, okay, what do these three witnesses all have in common? And you can take a marker, print out this slide and mark them and check them off, and you'll see that the times are there. They corroborate each other's description of what was going on, where he was at, where he parked, what he was wearing. And I mean, you know, and we still have one more item to throw on this pile, because there's people that serve that are in jail. And you can always say that one witness can be wrong and absolutely wrong, but when you start having multiple witnesses, and that it's hard to prove that, or even think that they're delusional and they're having the same and making the same mistakes, and that's not possible in the rules of physics. That what are the odds of two witnesses describing the exact same type of individual dressed in the same manner on a bridge that is separated by 10 to 15 minutes for the fact that the juvenile saw him somewhere around 126 or so. And then the harvest store, when she was going by at 146, by the time she gets to the bridge. So you're looking at a time frame of 20 something minutes difference between these two witnesses. Yet they describe Richard Allen, who also says, yes, I saw the witness, the first juvenile who saw me walking down the trail with my hands in my pocket, wearing my blue-black jacket, my head covering, and as I was walking from the Freedom Bridge towards the Monine. And so we have to give them a lot of weight to that. All right. Hey, Fig, good to see you, bud. All right, let me see if I can get caught back up here. Oh, me. Yeah, let's see. Let's see here. Yeah, see, JK, Georgia's still undefeated. I haven't heard her scream again, so I don't know what was going on in there. Criminality, good to see you. Glad to see you here tonight. And if I miss any of the creators in here, I apologize, but hopefully I won't. Anything else? Oh, look here. Ah. Almost messed up, guys. For you that are new to the channel, on the support, the struggle is real with my blue light. But we always recognize, owed to my career in law enforcement, give blue light for all those that support this channel. We appreciate it, and thank you for that membership. See, without Mrs. Steve, I'm running around in a circle, guys. Steve, glad you're here. Don, good to see you. Let's see here. Trying to get caught up, see if I missed anybody. Let's see here. Question: how did she describe that car she saw parked CPS building? Did she confirm it was the girls she saw, or just thought they could be? Well, the time frame is right. They said that they went across that bridge. She says that she saw multiple girls as she went under the bridge. So, I'm, like I said, these are all supporting evidence of each other. Now, did the witness in the car, they wouldn't have done a photo lineup of the witnesses. They would have just time frame checked. They knew what time she was in a certain area. They knew when the girls were in a certain area and what those time frames were. And the window of opportunity of other, these girls says that, they were there. She says she's there. So it's supporting evidence of what was going on there. Now, as far as the car parked beside the building, being backed in, and is about, now, of course, the defense has thrown out some information out there that how accurate is it? Are they just doing their job? We'll have to see what just because defense says something doesn't mean that it will make it into court, but we'll see what they do with it. All right. Yeah, good to see everybody. Heather says, yeah, we haven't seen all of our Richard Allen's defense. Does he have an alibi? Where was he? He has an alibi. He says he was at home. And how strong of an alibi is that? Well, the defense attacks other people that they threw under the bus by saying that when they're at home, it's a weak alibi. So you have to give credit where credit is due. That this would be a weak alibi, and also you have to give credit that one of the persons that emphasized this is Fig. Fig had a great video the other night where he came out and he made those comments, and it's absolutely true. If you, as a defense attorney, credit someone with a weak alibi, and yet your client does the exact same thing, then it means the same thing. That if you say you're at home, that's a weak alibi. Well, your client says he's at home. So hats off to Fig. He noted that, and it's absolutely true. What's fair is fair. And I think that was Fig. If it's not Fig, whichever creator did that, but I think it was Fig. Yes, the eyewitness remembers a lot, but we have two eyewitnesses. We've got three eyewitnesses. We got Richard Allen. We got the witness at the bridge. I don't go into a lot of names, guys, and please limit the names in chat and everything. I just don't throw names of people out there. That'll be done through the courts and everything, and I just don't throw them out there. I just either refer to them as juvenile or female. And then, of course, Richard Allen, he's the one that's on trial. And so, of course, he's the one that's charged, probable cause affidavit, search warrants. His name is Game. But the others I don't put out there. If y'all would just try to keep the names out and initials out, I appreciate it. Let's see here. She only came to the shoulder. She must have been approximately 3 feet tall. Well, he's 5'4", I think. So she could be anywhere from 4'4" to 4'6", I would think, because it depends, up around the shoulder and how far, 8 inches or so. And how accurate is that? Law enforcement will look at that. And now the defense will give a lot of weight to that too. Now, that's a good point. That the defense, although I don't think it's going to be 3 feet tall, but the defense will absolutely look at that. They'll ask her height and say, okay, how accurate is this? And they'll give it and scrutinize it as best they can for the defense. Lizzie Jones. So does law enforcement go back to witnesses and provide a picture to verify if it's the same person they saw? We used to do lineups, and I would imagine this witness here who says she didn't see the face, you wouldn't be able to use that as a lineup as far as Richard Allen's face, because she says she didn't recognize him. But she believed he was white. So there's no way that you would be able to give this juvenile a lineup and say, is this the man you saw? She says she didn't see the face. And if she went and said yes, being on the witness stand, that is something the defense would absolutely destroy. Would just tear and rip, and they're not going to do that. But now, if they show this picture of Bridge Guy and said, is this the guy you saw? And they may have put it in a lineup situation, or they may have, not have. I don't know, but they most certainly could have shown this picture to her, and it'll be what it is, and they'll bring it up in the defense because this is something that she described, and so I wouldn't be surprised if the law enforcement did show these pictures, not for the point of identifying them as Richard Allen, but as far as identifying, is this the person you met on the trails that day? And they look at that, and if she says, yes, that's the person I met on the trails that day, and Richard Allen confirms I'm the one that met her on the trails that day, it's huge, guys. I mean, it's huge. And Triple S, you're absolutely correct. If they did it right, there's going to be rules how to properly conduct a photo array. And generally, lineups are for identifying and naming a suspect. And that's not really the case here. This time with this witness here, not so much as, like I said, identifying him as Richard Allen, but identifying him as Richard Allen says, yes, I'm the one that met the three girls. Three girls says, yes, that's who I met. Or this one girl who is huge says, yes, that's the individual. Then, like I said, I put her way up on the top of the list of how important her testimony will be. All right. Let's see here. Joanne Lynn says, Steve, they'll almost have DNA from the crime scene which matches Richard Allen's DNA because they are so confident he is the culprit. Well, there's DNA has only been around now since the late 80s as far as being regularly admitted into the courts. So it's still relatively new and it advances all the time. Do they have DNA that we are unaware of? It's possible, guys, that they may have developed some new evidence and it may be developed all the way up till trial. I don't know. I'm shocked that they haven't already found some DNA that that was included in the probable cause affidavit for the fact you would expect in violent encounters where there's even on one-sided offenses that you'll shed DNA. And there's always a possibility when you're using an edged weapon during the commission of homicides or any type of attack that you'll harm yourself, cut yourself, and you'll leave a blood trail and cross contaminations. And so they just, do I think that there's DNA in that crime scene and with those victims? Absolutely. But DNA is so hard to find. I've told multiple times in several of my videos, it took us, I think, right 5 times of sending an airbag, a passenger side airbag, to the crime lab in the state of Georgia, knowing that that airbag had impacted the offender who committed a homicide with a driver and left him, and knowing that airbag during the wreck had contact at high speeds with the offender. But it still took us 5 times from that small airbag, 18 by 24-inch airbag, before we were able to isolate the offender's DNA. So it's not easy even from that. So can you imagine working a large outdoor crime scene and trying to find DNA? It's not something that just stands out and says, here I am. It's something that has to be done in a controlled environment, and it's hit and miss. And because it can just be one small spot. And it's, like I said, it's very difficult. Okay, guys, y'all quit arguing in chat. That's not, y'all enjoy yourselves, do the debate, but let's not talk about, we're all grown adults here. Thank you, 63 clocks. And this is a good point here. Sometimes I remember very well, and others from a few days prior, not so well. I hope these witnesses remember it all. And that's the thing, is that time doesn't improve your memory. When you're when it's fresh and when notes are taken, and that's how come law enforcement documents these notes, and through recordings or memorize them through notes and things. And so, and it has to be noted, and so that when you get on that stand, because sometimes these trials, and we're going to see this trial here, some of these officers and their key notes that they made 5, 6, 7 years ago will be huge and in trial. Okay. True crime web. How does law enforcement work with a situation where parts of a witness statement fits, but other parts don't? Well, and that's the thing, and that's where the prosecution does their magic when they present certain key points, and then you'll see the defense come in with their side of it and say, "Well, you said this," and they'll try to highlight those differences and variances between their statements and what links their uh, uh, defendant to the crime. And then the opposite side of it is that when the defense brings up their witnesses, the prosecution does the exact opposite. They'll go after and say, okay, these are the facts that you know, but why doesn't these things match up? And so it's just each side presents it, and it's what has an impact on that jury. And when they apply their reason, their logic, and what is possible and what the evidence tells them, and you track that evidence down. There's people serving life sentences. There have been people that were sentenced to the ultimate um, uh, adjudication of what our DP uh, phase of the and executions that can occur. Trying to get this where that YouTube doesn't hit me too bad, but that on far less, just on single witnesses. And I hate single eyewitnesses, but this is different. We have three different eyewitnesses, and when you have three eyewitnesses, says it's I was there and that I've confessed to this crime. Not only do we have the confession that's going to be a huge part of this, we have these three eyewitnesses that says yes, this is who I saw, which is going to be huge. Uh, uh, yes, Dreamscape, that is true. Alan said he was on the path. Witnesses corroborated. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Lucy, about the triple alt. For y'all that are new to the channel, I'm saying I just had a brand new grandson. We got Steve, Mrs. Steve, baby Steve, double alt Steve, and triple alt Steve. Mr. Steve, does it appear to you that BG could possibly have rope sticking out the top of his jacket? You know, actually, I did an experiment with that, and I shared some images of that to see if that could be, and it actually could be. I just don't know. I don't know what that is, but I shared some images with someone at one point discussing that very fact. Um, and it's just speculation because I don't know what it was. But when I took the pictures of that, yeah, it seems to be similar. It could be. Yes, such common clothing. Sammy Day, you make a good point. It looks like it could be nearly anyone. But this nearly anyone is that we narrow the field of opportunity for the fact that Richard Allen says, I was there during that time. This witness says she was there at that time. They corroborate each other statement and during this critical time. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, it's not anyone. Richard Allen has confessed to it, says that, hey, I committed the crimes as charged, and this is what I was wearing. And we have witnesses that says, yes, I saw him. This is what he was wearing. So if they get to his statement, if they allow and his confession goes into court, these two witnesses here is going to be crushing to his defense, regardless if the bullet comes in or not. Which I think the bullet will come in for the fact that when we get into the next slide here, when we're talking about that, and that of where the a unspent round was found between the two victims, and that he owns a firearm that the characteristics matching characteristics from the slide, ejection, and from the characteristic by the expert, firearms expert of the state, that, that's huge too. But even without that bullet, I'm now looking at that we have two separate witnesses, along with Richard Allen, whose confession says, I was there. I was at a critical time. We have these other witnesses. I don't see it as anything other than I see that, of course, we have to look at, he's innocent until proven guilty, but he's gone a long way towards saying and convicting himself. And of course, he is innocent until proven guilty, but he has a hard path, uphill battle to get out of this now, guys, in my opinion. Thank you, Kamala Norris. Oh, Mrs. Steve, she chose Georgia over me, though. Could you explain Richard Allen asked for a speedy trial? I think, how's that going to work? I don't know if it will work or not. The judge seems to think that it's going to be another year, but now if he pushes it and they want it, I think the defense is ready. I really do. And so you got to be careful what you wish for. And yes, Bella, the more you look at it, he's wearing layer of clothing that day. And when we go back to this is exactly what this juvenile says, that that he was wearing a blue windbreaker, and that he was wearing something underneath it that had a collar and had a hood up and the clothing underneath his jacket. So absolutely, I agree with you that he was wearing layers. Olivia 2, $5 super sticker. Thank you. Let me see if I can get this here. There's your blue light. Right, let me see. Thank you. Appreciate it. We appreciate your support. Going up Midwest next week, if the weather holds, if we don't get snowed out. I know that there's a phase of the trial, and I think it's after conviction for Indiana, and I may be wrong, of where that decision is made. Some states have it made at different times. I don't really know when it has to be made for this case, but I know that they are preparing the attorneys that they have to be DP qualified to handle this case, so it's on the table. Okay, criminality says it's one of the many good points Fig made in that video. Yes, so he is the one. I was hoping I was crediting the right one that had seen that and mentioned that. And Big Fish Small Pond says, yeah, but the defense doesn't have to prove innocent. The prosecutor has to prove guilt. Yes, absolutely true. And that's how come he's innocent until proven guilty. But we got three witnesses says that's me on the bridge, or that's him on the bridge, in my opinion. And I could be dead wrong. I've been wrong before. And, but looking at this and from my law enforcement perspective, that I see no problem, and I understand why Doug Carter said, look at how he walks, because we had this witness that said, hey, that we got a guy that I met 10 or 15, 20 minutes before he encountered Libby and Abby, and he had baggy jeans on, hands in pocket, head down, blue black jacket, collar, hood, and I saw him at 126. All critical information, a long time ahead before the crime was committed, walking in a certain manner that when you look at this loop that they created, I give credit to it that that's why they did so. Mr. C, what do you think of RA changing the time he was there? How do you think that played out in court? Of course, he has to separate himself from there. At the end of the day, he has to say, I was not there during that critical time, because he can't say I was there. And that's just a strategy that he has to do. He has to separate himself by time and distance. And time-wise is, I wasn't there. And if I'm not there during this critical time, I cannot commit the crime because I'm at home, and which is a weak alibi, as we've seen, demonstrated by the defense. Oh, I missed it. I don't know if they're going to seek death penalty for him or not. I've never seen where Alan says he was at home. Can you show that, please? I think one of the defense attorneys made that reference in one of their statements that he was at home. If you watch the video and see Flair's fingers on the right hand, he must have had a hold of a gun. I do believe that at some point during this sequence, that he does pull a firearm. That's my personal opinion. This is a good point. If I saw someone who was 5'4" at 50 feet away, I imagine my brain would default to it being a younger person. Very possible. That's interesting. Yeah, it's out there. We just I try to limit names. Do you think Richard Allen might be a loner and not really a loner and not really memorable? Could be why no one is saying it's him. I take it that, and thank you for your support. Appreciate it. Appreciate your support. Yes, I think that one of the things that has led to this being that he was just fell through the crack. It was one of those Jason Bourne moments that he was so unremarkable of what he was doing that day on the trails. Although those three girls, they had bad vibes, and even I think everyone, Libby and Abby, had bad vibes from him. So it wasn't really the Jason Bourne effect, but it's pretty much like that. That for whatever reason, he was able to walk right through that, and then leave, and for whatever reason, was not singled out from the moment that he spoke with the conservation officer, because even the conservation officer overlooked him as far as that he wasn't worth remembering. And that tells you what type of individual that if Richard Allen is responsible for this, that within hours, he was able to go back into society with no hesitation, with no outward showing guilt, able to go to law enforcement, look them in the eye and say, hey, I was there, which is, like I say, that tells you a lot about his character and what type of individual you're dealing with. For the fact that you're dealing with an individual that it's not a single victim. When people commit homicides, they can stop at any moment. But this individual didn't only stop during one homicide, he didn't stop during the second homicide. He continued. And then afterwards, he was able to go back into society. And so, which is absolutely remarkable. Mr. Steve, how do you think RA changing timings there will play out? Not a real big deal. I think it's going to, it's not going to be a big deal for the fact that we have that officer's notes and he has key times in there, although they're military times, but he has those key times from his notes. He'll be able to refresh his memory and says, this is what so-and-so told me. But yes, generally, whenever someone is measured, it's in shoes. If they come in barefooted, we measure them barefooted. But if they come in wearing shoes, we measure them wearing shoes. Yeah. Let's see what we got going in here. Nanar, good question. Has RA said that is a photo of him? I'm hoping law enforcement has introduced that photo to him and says, is this you? And are they keeping it close to the chest? Don't know. Maybe, maybe not, but it is going to be critical. That would have been such a key thing that I wish we had that information. I know that at some point during one of my interviews, if I was interviewing him, I would have put that down there in front of him and said, you know, it's up, it's over, guy. Who is this? This is you. The girl says it's you. The lady says it's you. You say it's you. So tell us what it is. Let's bring it to an end. I don't know what type of interviews were conducted, but we'll have to find out in the future. Let's see, Betty, Mr. Steve, this case is so frustrating. What factor do you think caused this? Treating the case as if the girls were just lost and not taken, or lack of proper record keeping per the witnesses. Mistakes are made. Law enforcement, you know, we're all human. We make mistakes. I've made mistakes. Choices and decisions have to be made. And if you watch Holman's interview, that he says that that's chaos. Absolutely true. When you get out there to these crime scenes, those first moments from those first responding officers to the investigators, to the securing of the scene, to even the witnesses finding the victims and getting law enforcement there, there's a lot of things that occur at that crime scene and a lot of things that contribute to what eventually can blow up a case or cause a case to go unsolved for a long time. And it's not just one thing. There's a lot of things that happen in these storms. And that's the closest thing I can tell you about this chaos storm that occurs at all crime scenes. Nothing is as smooth as what you see when you watch a CSI show. Everything runs smoothly. That's not the case. And when they do show some disruption in the force, that's nowhere near how crazy it can be at crime scene. But it's very important that you keep proper record keeping. There's no ifs, ands, or about that. That you have to make sure that everything's in order. For the fact it doesn't get any better. That when you're trying to organize chaos, those first moments is as good as it gets. It's all downhill. But once you get everything under control and everybody's working together, it starts to smooth out. Art of Deduction says that True Crime Web, Colin Pitchfork was the first DNA case. Thank you for that piece of information. when we were coming along through the CSI world, it could be used, and it was only certain types of cases, and it was all new, and it's still, like I said, there's new stuff, and there's new ways, and there's new technology, and everything goes through this. Same thing with fingerprints. It had to go through a court system. The automated fingerprint identification system had went through its trial period. DNA's went through its trial period, and it's recognized now. It's not junk science. But I think I remember something about the first DNA case. It's somewhere in the 80s, I believe, when it was first used. That's just from my memory. GBI is the best. They're recognized. They did a lot of groundbreaking um, investigations over the years. Actually, I think one of the first fingerprints that was ever identified in a homicide by the automated fingerprint system was in the homicide of the governor's aunt in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. That's way back. No, I hope is listening to your DNA explanation. I don't know. Uh, my DNA explanation, I am not a DNA expert. I just know it's extremely difficult to find, and I found it at crime scenes. I didn't find it. I sent the the article uh, repeatedly back to the crime lab. I'd send it off. It'd be gone for a month or two, and DNA would come back as far as the DNA that was recovered from this passenger side airbag was identified as belonging to the victim who was on the driver's side. Now, that was due to body fluids that were blown back from the firearm when it was shot, and the injury to the victim, and the back spatter that went onto the passenger side airbag. And so every time I sent it off, it came back once again as the victim's DNA profile. But finally, we went to a part of the bag that was marked off, and they were able to find the offenders. And so, like I said, it's extremely difficult. Best guess from anyone on when we actually see a trial. I don't know. I know everybody says it may be early 2024, but I don't even know if it's going to be 2024. I really don't. I hope it is, but I can see it being longer. Uh, Eddie, 499 super sticker. Thank you for your support. Like I said, I'm going up to Indiana next week, and I appreciate that. Cool. Um, I'm gonna get Betty a blue light. Let's if I can get in there. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's my traveling blue light. If you see my other shows, you'll see where I have at my studio. I have a different blue light. But I appreciate your support. And this is a key point. Witness statements are always a bit tricky. The mind fills in gaps, and we all remember things differently. And you are absolutely correct. A mind. When we look back, and now we have three minds. And these three minds, like I tell you, like I say, speech impediment. Sorry, guys. When you check it off, we got three different minds saying this is what was going on that day. And that's, like I said, that's the difference. We just don't have a single mind. But thank you. That's a good point. You're absolutely correct. All right, let's see here. Question, Steve. I never understood why law enforcement doesn't keep their original notes after dictating their reports. Wouldn't it make more sense to attach the original notes to the report? We always were instructed to keep our original notes. I have no idea what some agencies may have that, but we kept our original notes and we had our reports. And but now to do that, you have to have a way of securing them, keeping them, documenting them, and because they have to be turned over, whatever you have in your case file. And that's just the way I worked and what I did during my um, investigations with CSI. I had all my original notes for the fact that if something was brought up that wasn't possibly in the report or I missed something, I could always go back into my original notes and check because sometimes you do miss things. And if it's there and you misread something or you misquote something and the defense look at it and they can bring it, because the truth is what is ultimately most important. It doesn't matter what your opinion of it is that if someone else can look at the same information as you and come to a conclusion of that evidence that says, oh, this definitely means that he's innocent, it should be out there, guys. It's not always that it's just the CSI's opinion only. It's that evidence sometimes you can jump to the wrong opinion sometimes. People make mistakes. And so we have to be extremely careful. And that's how come I kept my original notes. Uh, Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Glad to see everybody here. They said that the crime scene was staged. Does that mean there's a different location where the girls were homicide was committed? Well, staging, moving, the FBI in their probable cause affidavit, of course, stated that there was some movement, staging within the crime scene. What does that mean? How far? If it's just a few feet, yes, I can go a lone wolf. But if you're talking about hundreds of yards or from a different crime scene, I'm not going to be one that says, "Hey, I think it's a lone wolf." I'm going out there and saying that if the homicides occurred anywhere other than on the Logan property themselves, um, I'm going to go with some of those law enforcement officers and uh, and even the defense attorney saying that there may be others involved. I can see that point. Brenda gifted one True Crime Web membership. Thank you. I'm gonna get this blue light. I'm gonna figure this thing out eventually, guys. Thank y'all. Appreciate that. That's fine. Really, my sister is a law enforcement officer, exactly zero organizing skill, and that is true. Law enforcement is no different than the across the board, no matter what profession you're in. You can go into that profession. Doesn't matter if you're a baker or if you're a teacher or whatever profession you're in. And you'll see some people that are extremely organized and you'll see the disorganized. It's the exact same with crime scenes. It's the exact same with law enforcement. You have the full spectrum of individuals of how they act and what they do. And if they're organized or disorganized. So there's just because you're law enforcement doesn't mean you're organized. You'll pay for it on the stand if you're not. Thank you, Lori. Uh, Lori says, can someone put up how to donate to the fund for travel to look into other crimes? If you go to truecrimeweb.com, on the homepage there's a foundation that is a 501 that's tax deductible. You can donate that way, and that allows almost totally 100% of the money, other than a small fee, goes to those buying of equipment, travel, room board, all the stuff that goes along whenever we head out. And I appreciate that. And we also use the money that is made, although when you donate through YouTube or Super Chats, there's a smaller amount that goes in that we get because YouTube takes their cut. But thank you for that question. We finally catch Bridge Guy, and people refuse to believe it's Bridge Guy. Absolutely. I think we've found, but like I said, he's innocent until proven guilty. True crime. Are you going out to the bridge again? Try this. Take 10 people, stand a stranger out where BG was standing. 10 people were, the lady was standing, and ask them individually what they saw. Actually, this is something that we did in sniper training. This is one of the tests that we do, but we are not limited to just what we see at 50 feet. It's what you see in the picture from 0 out to 500 yards of gathering intel. And I would expect that different people will, from their life experiences, see absolutely different things. You may even have people who wouldn't even see him out there. It just depends. They may be overwhelmed by the bridge and the height and the trees and the birds. Witnesses are hard on themselves sometimes. All right. I hope I'm not missing anybody. I'm sure I am, guys. If I missed anything you said, I apologize. And even in that article, it was the totality of the evidence and of the information, and in the probable cause, especially in the probable cause affidavit. I think for Richard Allen, it does talk about the totality of the circumstances. Will you stay on the topic during the trial? I'm hoping by that time that I'm more here in Florida than I am in Georgia. In Georgia, my YouTube connection and upload speed absolutely sucks. Here in Florida, not so much. I've got great internet down here. Up in Georgia, no, I don't have great internet. So if I'm here in Florida, yes, I will probably cover the trial daily. Conservation, not conversation. Yes, I have a speech impediment, but hopefully I said conservation. You're correct. But sometimes my words, I have a hard time with them. Sorry about that. Kept. Thank you. Let me get my blue light here. Appreciate that. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Lori. Appreciate that. Cynthia, thank you for the talk about triple alt Steve. I appreciate it. Kamala Norris, $10. Let me see if I can figure this thing out. Thank you for your $10. What do you think of this statement? No two people have the same fingerprints. That has never been scientifically proven. Thoughts? I've looked at thousands, hundreds of thousands of fingerprints. And we have the APHIS system out there now, the automated fingerprint identification system. Is there a possibility? And what you have to understand a lot about the fingerprint stuff, and not to get too far off topic, is that there may be a lot of common characteristics. You may have bifurcations, islands, ridge endings. All this stuff can be that you'll have within a fingerprint a lot of similarities, but it's those differences. And when those similarities and differences occur, it's a different fingerprint. That, yes, you may have a fingerprint that shares some common identifiers, but throughout the whole fingerprint, no. And I don't think that it has occurred, but at some point they may find two fingers, but I don't know of them at this point. Bridget, how are you doing? Good to hear from you. Steve, you're giving me hope after all the nonsense we've been hearing. Yes, I hope. Oh, I hadn't seen that. There's a video of RA walking in the bar with his wife with his hands in his pockets, and it really looks like him. And that's the thing, is that that's interesting, that when I went back and looked at Doug Carter's statement of why it was so important to look at how he was walking. And it's from this other witness that saw him 15, 20 minutes prior to this video that noted that. And I found that interesting. And I find your statement here interesting also. AC Marty, Frank's motion, what effect will it have? I don't think much of anything. Now that it's in the higher courts and they're looking at it, everything's going to get figured out and smoothed out. Not a problem. Devoted. I love an alibi as a non-alibi. Mr. Steve, will the conservation officer be called to testify? If absolutely, this case will hinge, and there will be so much. Now he's going to be hammered, absolutely hammered by the defense. The prosecution will bring him in there. Then, of course, the prosecution will look at his background, present him as a trained individual, law enforcement officer. I believe conservation officers there, or LE also. I don't know with what powers they have. I don't know about the Indiana, but then the defense will get up there and try to absolutely destroy everything about him as far as his credibility, his memory, his note taking, information he gathered, and where he was wrong and why, and how was Richard Allen helpful to the case, and did you suspect him? Did you see any injuries? And why didn't you recognize him as being a individual? And why did you let him go knowing that he was on the bridge itself at a critical time? Why didn't you call someone else to come to the scene to assist you in this interview, noting how key he would be? And so they're going to rake him over the coals. Guarantee it. Lone Pony, tell Mrs. Steve we miss her. And as always, appreciate your insight. Always learn something. Thank you. Let me get this blue light in there. Thank you. Appreciate it. What part of the video do you think has been edited? I think at the point of him presenting the firearm, I think at some point during this video, pretty close to this exact moment that you see in this loop, I think he drawed a weapon from either a holster or his pocket. That's my personal opinion. And but I have a video I made of it. You can go look at it. But that's just my personal opinion. And this is something that if he is an individual, if he is eventually convicted of these crimes, and that this is going to be, this will tell you of that, like I said, he's innocent until proven guilty, but it should be an eye-opening moment for all of us that these individuals that can commit such a crime can have interactions with the family hidden in plain sight, as someone else mentioned earlier, and and that tells you a lot about psychopaths. Kamala Norris, One True Crime Web membership. Thank you. Once again, I'll try to get this thing up there. Thank you. Oh man, I got to get this thing mounted down here also. Yes, VP. Not all witnesses are real good on heights and everything. Can you clarify the depth of the creek they crossed, please? Well, we see that when they called in the search crews and some of the specialized units that went into the creek, it appeared to be waist high during the crime search. You can see that from the helicopter footage. So if you look at that, you're looking at, depends on the height of the average individual, you're probably looking somewhere around 3 feet. So it was that. But now when I've been there, there's parts of that creek that's only a few inches deep at certain times of year. At the time that this occurred, which is the only time that really matters, it appears to be somewhere between 3 to 3.5 feet. Now there could be holes in that creek that make it much deeper, and there could be areas that are far shallower where that as you cross that creek. And so the CSI, they'll know exactly, because you could look at if there's indications of evidence showing that there was flight or the victims were forced to cross the creek. There's going to be on creek banks, you're going to have evidence, shoe prints, tracks, mud, whatever. You're going to have evidence showing that there was a crossing occurred here. Question: do you think his confession to his wife will affect the case? Absolutely. I think that is something that the defense will have to pull out and try to squash it in every shape, form, and fashion they can. And will they be able to keep it out in front of a jury? I don't know. That there'll be some hearings on that, but I don't believe so. I think it's going to be there. Let's see here. Trying to get caught up, guys. Everybody be nice again. And mods, take care of it if there's anything needs taken care of. And we want everybody to debate issues. Don't have a problem, but just don't be rude to each other. But if you can't debate someone with respect, go somewhere else. And this is a true statement. Funny how the more advanced we get, the harder it seems to prove a case. Seems DNA is a double-edged sword. Not every case wants DNA at the scene, and not every case will it be found. And that's true, that we're getting so dependent on modern technologies that we're forgetting the old school ways, and that at what point will it be that, oh, if there's not DNA there, then we're not going to convict anybody. If we don't have pictures, we don't have a confession, we're not going to convict anybody, because at this case here, we're almost at that right now. Oh, me. There's Julie Melvin. Good to see you. Julie, I've met with her, and she was very helpful. Walked me through the crime scene, and actually helped me get access to the crime scene. So thank you. Betty, that's good about the moon. That's good. I keep hearing that crime scene photos were leaked years ago. I followed this from the beginning. I do not remember hearing this. In fact, until recently, nobody knew the cause of or manner of death. Yes, and a lot of people, and when we say crime scene photos have been released, it's just fractions of moments in time. There are hundreds, if not thousands. I don't know how many snaps or images that were taken, because of our digital photography and digital imaging and 3D imaging. There's going to be millions of images that could be snapped at any time by multiple devices and from technology of any moment during this crime scene. And so the images with the modern technologies of so there's a lot of images out there of this crime scene. And so if you look at it from that standpoint, 5, 10, 20, even 100 images is just a drop in the bucket. How many images are out there? I would expect are going to be very few, in the grand scale of things. All right. Dr. Hunt, that's a good point. I wish they have to make choices. They thought it was going to be solved relatively quick. Uh, Sorry if you already, but why do you think he injected an unspent round? I don't know what the reasoning could have been, other than, there's several ways that rounds get ejected from a firearm. It can be during a struggle. It could be through the excitement of intimidation. I think that they mentioned that in the early parts of the audio from the video that there's a racking of a gun. That's rumor. I haven't heard the audio, don't know. And then during the moment, did he redraw the firearm during this critical moment and eject it? Was the round ejected due to some type of struggle and one of the victims grabbing the gun and sliding the slide back and ejecting the round? Or is he an individual that carries a firearm, but he carries a firearm that is that doesn't have a round in the chamber? Some individual that when they charge a weapon by loading it, that at the end of the day, before they go back, due to their training or whatever, or mindset, they'll rack that round out so that they are carrying an empty firearm, or at least they may have rounds in the magazine, but it doesn't have one in the chamber. So I don't know, but there's several reasons why that round could have been left on the ground. All right, trying to get caught up, guys. After turning the man's recording this case, my friend's telephone was tapped for a very long time, multiple clicks in the background and dropped calls. Why would this happen to her? I don't know what type of information she called, or was it line trouble? On what evidence she has, um, I don't know. If it was some key information of that it's information that is very critical to the case, that they anticipate that she has inside communication with the offender, that you may be absolutely correct, that they would tap that line saying, hey, they're talking, they know information that no one knows. So I don't know what information it was, but it is possible. Um, Mistakes is crime scene evidence flew off the roof of CSI truck down the road because he forgot he put some on his roof. Is any of it admissible in court now? Well, the only, it depends on who found it. If he was driving down the road and watched it blow off, then it's not a big deal. If he was driving down the road and someone pulled up beside him and says, hey, this flew off your truck, I picked it up and here it is, they become part of the chain of custody. He'd be able to check the bags, make sure it's still sealed. And so there's a lot of variables in it that may allow it still to be admissible. And it just depends on if it just blew off the truck. People make mistakes. Like I said, doesn't mean it's right. And he's going to get hammered for that. There's no doubt that if you're this scatterbrained to leave evidence on top and you made this type of a mistake, they're going to hammer you on it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah. And like I said, it may be some key information that they were trying to get inside. It may be absolutely true. I don't know. Trying to keep up with chat, guys. Thank y'all for being here tonight. Thank you, Cynthia. I'm trying to. Does a 1 year delay help or hurt the prosecution? It depends. With technology that occurs, it could absolutely benefit the case for both sides, for the fact that they may identify other DNA. And so a 1 year delay, I can see where it would help and not hurt either side, for the fact that if someone else's DNA pops up at a key part of the crime scene, I'm all for it because we're after justice. And so even the 1 year delay, it could help either side. Yeah, I don't have an idea if they will or not, but if they do, go for it. Yes, even identical twins have different fingerprints. You are correct. Same DNA, but different fingerprints. And let me see. Oh, here we go. What mannerisms were we to observe in a 1.5 second long video? Well, and I'd always questioned that, but when I looked at and went back and checked this video and looked at what this witness, the juvenile, says that he was walking with his hands in his pocket, his head's down, baggy jeans, blue, describe BG. And I said, this is the point that I believe Doug Carter was trying to bring to the table, that this is how he normally walks. This is what he would look like when he walks. And I think that was the point of it. And I think this is what, when Doug says that we think someone not looking at the face, but just looking at his clothing, looking at his mannerisms, that you would recognize him. And so I tend to agree now. It makes a little bit more sense to me. Thank you, Badger Mama. Robin B says, "Good evening, Mr. Steve and everyone. I have a question. With this case having a lot of TV and internet output, how will the people that choose for a proper jury for a fair trial, I would like, or your input?" They're going to find people. I mean, we that have an interest in true crime and justice and following this case, there's no way that we're going to be on this jury panel. It'd be impossible. But not everyone is as interested in this, and there's a part of the population that they may have heard of it, and it's not a disqualifier if you have heard of a case. It's just that do you have an opinion that would jeopardize your ability to look at the evidence and come to a fair and impartial of what the evidence shows you to be the truth of the matter, and so that's all it does. And so you can have some knowledge of it, and there's going to be plenty of people out there that are far less opinionated than what we are here. Let's see here. Try and get caught up, guys. And if I missed your questions, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Farmer says, in light of the fact that law enforcement said that the person on the bridge was no longer a person of interest and the OBG should be considered secondary, does that coincide with a clerical error? Clerical error. That is one convoluted statement, and I can understand where it is very confusing. And law enforcement, will they be having to address this on the stand? Yes. Will the defense go after whoever makes these statements? Absolutely. And they should, because we need to clarify why was a certain person described a certain way at a certain point, and then it changes. But law enforcement makes mistakes. They can pick the wrong strategy. They can go with the wrong individual. And we've seen that many times, that people that have been convicted, even, that someone else later on is found to have done the crime. So just because someone's primary and then we have a secondary doesn't mean that either first, second, or even third one that they looked at is the one that's guilty. And so, you just can't say that just because of this, then instantly everything has to be thrown out. Not the case. Good question. Say Mrs. Steve can bring people out. Okay. She would love that. All right. Yes, that's identical twins do have the same DNA. Not the same fingerprints, but same DNA. All right. I think we're getting close to the end of it, guys. I want to thank everybody for being here. And maybe not. I don't know. The chat's going on. We got a lot of people out here. I'm trying to get all the questions um, that I can get to. And I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of points, guys, but we appreciate y'all being here. And I try to give as much time as I can to the questions. Cynthia Gaines, congrats again on your new grandbaby. Thank you. Appreciate that. And there we go. Appreciate that. Thank you for your support. And this is, yes, that's $1 million. How did they know they were going to be there? And it can be a crime of opportunity, or it could be something that was set up and they knew through social media. And we just won't know. Only the offender has that key bit of information. Let's see. Can you elaborate on the importance of chain of custody, please, in regards to the bullet? There has been much talk lately that it wasn't found until later. With its logged but not with its chain of custody logged but not photographed. Yes, I don't know exactly when it was found, but there's a lot of evidence that is found over the years in a lot of cases that from the moment it is found and turned into law enforcement, that's when the chain of custody starts. For the fact that when it goes to court, individuals will have to testify that regardless of who found it, that their testimony would be critical, that they have to place it at the crime scene. So it could be anybody in the world that found it there. It could be CSI, could be a neighbor, could be a mailman. Doesn't matter. Whoever found it there will be critical because they have to place it there, how they found it, when they found it, where it was found, condition it was found, and is this it? And what did you do with it from the moment that you found it? And then I took it and turned it. So regardless, either you bagged it as a CSI guy or you turned it over to law enforcement. And from that moment on, there will be a detailed data sheet kept on it with a chain of custody. And that'll get to court. And so it's not a real big deal regardless of who found it, but it will be a big deal if it was, as far as the initial officer or individual, civilian, or whoever found it, of how they found it, where they found it, and making sure it's was handled correctly early on. Oh, let me get back over in here. I think Indiana has concealed carry, yes. Yeah, you can have knowledge of the case and still be a great juror. All right, let's see here. Thank you, everybody, for the new grandchild. Congrats. Thank you. All right, I got through that. Well, guys, hope I didn't miss too many questions and too many channels. A lot of creators out there coming in and out. We appreciate everybody. We thank everybody. But if you have any questions I didn't get to, just text me, email me, whatever. I'll try to get to them the best I can. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it, put it out there. The channel's growing. And through that growth, it allows me to go out there and work and do some work with some of the cold cases. And we appreciate it because we couldn't do it without all the support, because everything works together and allows us to go out and work with these families. But y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see y'all soon.